When you say faster, I just want to see how fast.
Very exciting day. Let the games begin. So we bring to you Airtel 5G Plus.
नेक्स्ट लेवल है, मतलब अब तो मेरी वीडियो फटाक से एकदम से अपलोड हो जाएगी.
मुझे लेटेंसी की अहमियत पता है, मैं उसके लिए ज़्यादा एक्साइटेड.
The technology we have chosen is the one which is widely used in the world. Every 5G phone will perform.
सिम चेंज करने का कुछ जरूरत नहीं था मुझे. नेटवर्क चेंज किया जाके एंड 5G enabled.
Airtel 5G Plus is environment friendly. I think that is very important. क्या मस्त स्पीड है रे.
It's revolution.
Magic.
Once you use it, you can't go back.
Effective supply chain management gives power to fulfill what your customers need, when and where they need it. How will you ensure that your supply chain is reliable, flexible, innovative and always strives for excellence?
Since the past 2 decades, TVS SCS has been the trusted name in the supply chain industry.
The legacy of TVS brand is more than 100 years old.
We are trusted for the value that we have created.
Our global presence with unmatched supply chain network pan-India, warehousing space of more than 19 million square feet, transportation network across 29 states, and a strong team of more than 10,000 professionals stand together to serve our esteemed customers.
We are trusted for the service that we provide.
Our end-to-end differentiated service portfolio is fitted as per customers' demands. We are partners in customers' journey.
We are trusted for the innovation that we can offer.
Strong technology backbone, integrated digital workflows, automated dashboards, visibility through control tower operation. We are just the way you want us, equipped with all the tools to make your supply chain resilient and agile.
We believe in the power of us.
When we partner with you, we are committed to offer you quality solutions. Together, we strive to achieve newer heights. Together, we stand united to write new success stories.
For 28 years, the CII Partnership Summit has been driving India's global engagement. In 2023, as CII leads B20 India, the Partnership Summit will converge government and business leaders of the world and India with the theme of partnerships for responsible, accelerated, innovative, sustainable and equitable businesses. The CII Partnership Summit will align with B20 India. global dialogues are strategized around 10 tracks. Inclusive GVCs for resilient global trade and investment. G20. Financing global recovery. Future of work, skilling and mobility. Energy, climate change and resource efficiency. Financial inclusion. Digital transformation. Technology, innovation and R&D. ESG in business. African economic integration. With country sessions, B2B meetings, state sessions and much more. The CII Partnership Summit 2023 is the world's meeting place this March. Partnerships for responsible, accelerated, innovative, sustainable and equitable businesses. CII's Green Initiatives. Welcome to the world of green buildings. CII's Indian Green Building Council, IGBC, with the support of all stakeholders, launched the country's first IGBC Net Zero Energy Building Rating System in 2018. This enabled the enhancement of green features of buildings by bringing in innovative and futuristic technologies. IGBC certified green buildings resulted in a tremendous reduction of energy and water consumption and also provided healthier places for people. CII's IGBC, set up over 2 decades ago, has launched many impactful and innovative initiatives. Today, IGBC has 31 different rating programs, 29 chapters across India, and 6,000 accredited professionals. With the active participation of all stakeholders, today India has achieved a major milestone of 10.22 billion square feet of registered green building footprint. India has become the second largest country.
Because he asked. Not on the Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very, very warm welcome to each one of you to what sounds to be a most interesting session this morning, Innovate or Perish, the Technology Leap. And to begin with this session, I'd like to invite Mr. Vipin Sondhi, Chairman CI National Mission on Technology, Innovation and Research, India, to take the session forward. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Renuka. Good morning and namaste, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you all. Early morning session on Innovate or Perish, the Technology Leap. We've got a stellar panel with us to speak and interact on the subject, and I'll introduce them at the time that they will make their individual addresses. I have a few opening remarks, 10 of them for your consideration. Number one, the average lifespan of Fortune 500 companies in the past was 75 years. It is 15 years now. It's expected to be half in the next decade. Being innovative is no longer nice to be, it has to be. And businesses have two choices, as the discussion today says, innovate or perish. Two, innovation can be a sustainable wealth creator for business, for people, for countries. Most of the developed world has built itself around continual innovation. Our Prime Minister has added a huge impetus to innovation by adding Jai Anusandhan to Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan and Jai Vigyan. Three, we are proud of being a chaotic democracy. Surprisingly, chaos predictably creates opportunity for innovation, opportunity to connect the dots that around us are all available in terms of patterns and clues, but which most of us miss out on. The question is, how do we enhance the frequency of connecting these dots? Four, the youngest and the young people in India live in exhilarating times, where he, she no longer describes himself or herself from where he or she is coming from, but describes as where he or she is intended to go. The young person can now receive and transmit to the outside world in real time. This leads to creativity, leads to entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship breeds innovation, and vice versa. It's a virtuous cycle. Five, the India stack consisting of identity, payments and data layers allows government, businesses, startups and developers to use the unique digital infrastructure which has been built in India to solve India's day-to-day pressing problems. A great opportunity for continual innovation. The stack, as we all know, is now being shared with countries who want to adapt it to their own requirements. Six, we have the third largest ecosystem in the world. Tens of thousands of these startups are tech-led startups, continually innovating day after day. And Dr. Gupta is actually going to talk about deep tech and about patient capital. Seven, it is now time that a framework is developed in industry, academia, research laboratories and startups to come together in a type of national research quad so that we can synergize individual ideas into an innovative whole. Eight, this framework for a comprehensive innovation ecosystem must provide impetus by creating an enabling environment. And one example could be through the acronym ICE. I for incentivizing innovation and R&D investment, focusing on scale and reach and making the change to millions of people. C for capability development, training, innovation assessments and rankings. And E for enabling collaboration across the national research quad through various mechanisms and platforms. And this framework must be easy, and effective so that it's able to positively impact organizations irrespective of their size. 9. Government across the globe are fostering innovation through many conducive policies. Such global measures will go a long way in promoting the culture of innovation through capability and resource development. In India, we must bring it as part of our DNA. And finally, 10th, CII is playing a pivotal role through its mission on technology, innovation, and research in this transformation as a torchbearer and ensuring engagement through stakeholders. We had a meeting yesterday for the B20 Task Force on Technology, Innovation, and Research, and we are trying to bring together all stakeholders so that we can benefit the B20 and wider countries and not just one country. We've got to bridge this divide that perhaps technology will bring. We've got to bridge it across all major nations. With these initial opening remarks, I'd now like to open the floor for my co-panelists and look forward to hearing your insights specifically on what you think are the key drivers for innovation that will enable to innovate and take a technological leap. Thank you very much. Let me now invite Dr. Akhilesh Gupta for his keynote address. Dr. Gupta, Secretary, Science and Engineering Research Board, SERB, Government of India, is also the Senior Advisor at the Department of Science and Technology. He heads the Policy Coordination and Program Management Division and is the overall in charge of 5 national missions in the Department of Science and Technology. Over to you, Dr. Gupta.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sodhi, and all the panelists, all the participants here. Truly, it has been a privilege for me to come here and speak to all of you. This is a very interesting theme that we have chosen for this panel discussion, Innovate or Perish the Technology Leap. I think once the Steve Jobs said this, the innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. And this is becoming very true now, that if you don't do innovation, you continue to be follower. And as Mr. Sondi also mentioned, that innovation is no longer nice to have, but it must have. And this is the time that the slogan of survival of the fittest has changed to the survival of the most innovative. There are 3 choices that any innovator will have, that either it actively innovate, or react to innovation, or do nothing and just wait for others to innovate and just be kind of a silent watcher for the scene. India, in fact, made some very outstanding progress in recent years in the area of innovation. We are now one of the fastest growing economy in the world. In fact, India has identified innovation as a key priority with Startup and Stand Up India missions that were launched in 2016. We these have high impact on the innovation ecosystem in the country. We are third in terms of number of startup. Even in the area of tech startup, we are now 25,000 plus, and also in terms of unicorn. Our GII ranking has been improving year by year, and now we are 40th in 2022. In fact, last year we were in fact addressed that India became the top country among the innovation achievers. Now the R&D landscape of the country is in fact changing very fast, and in fact last 2 years I have been given responsibility to formulate a national science and technology innovation policy. So our team has been working in this area. So the focus of this policy has been now that instead of incremental research, let's focus on the profound research, risk-taking R&D. And so SERV, in fact, has launched a couple of programs on this, that we work on not just to do blue sky research, but also focus on national relevant research and create impactful research in the country. Quality and relevance, both are important. India traditionally has been working and the research funding has been where the individual scientist interest was taken important, and then these individual scientists, they submit the proposal based on their interests. But now in recent time we started working the other way around, that we need to create relevance at the national level based on the national priority and aspiration. Speed and scale of implementation. Typically any research project in the country that we fund, government fund, is for the period of 3 years, 3 to 5 years. Now I think we are in fact, we experimented, especially during COVID time, we experimented 1 year project. And it is in fact working well in some cases, not necessarily in project where the experiments are to be very deeper, it works well. And also optimization. In fact, this is an important point that I wanted to bring, that India is one of the countries in the world which has a very high output with less resources, both human resources and the financial resources. So typically the National Science Foundation, per research cost, per research acre cost is nearly 6 times more than the India's research cost. So I think this is the important thing, that we are optimizing resources. Now, we have done well in the innovation. As I said, we are now third in terms of in total number of startups, but I think we need deep tech innovation now. In fact, in DST, we started a program called National Initiative for Developing and Harnessing Innovation. We have 160 technology business incubator, 12,000 startup, 1,600 women-led startup, and Center of Excellence. These all are in the area of technology and not just on the general business areas. These are some of the startup, some of the incubation centers that we have in the country. Also, there are tech startups, large number of them, as I said, 12,000 startups we have in this area. We launched this national mission on interdisciplinary cyber physical system, 2 years back, and these are in some key areas of cyber physical system. And just mentioning some a dozen of them which work on in the deep technology areas like artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, robotic, cyber security, and all. And they are doing well. Nearly 800 startups have been set up in these areas of research in the country, and in fact, last 2 years progress has been quite modest, I would say, and primarily because of the COVID, that we could not make a very profound progress, but now it is picking up, and we are planning within next year we are expecting that these deep tech startup will go at least double. Very soon you will hear that India is launching a national quantum mission. It's going to be very soon, and the idea of this quantum mission, this is government driven, and this is the quantum of investment by government of India is nearly $1 billion. for 5 years. And these are in the 4 areas: quantum computing, quantum communication, sensing and metrology, and also material and devices. All these 4 areas are in fact important, and India needs to build that capacity to have its own indigenous quantum technologies and the area related areas. We would be, in fact, we like industry. In fact, this is one quantum area is one where industry in India has not been very, not coming forward and investing into this area. But I think once we launch this mission, we are sure that we'll have a number of industry coming forward and partnering with government in taking this forward. I would conclude with saying that we are a 1.4 billion population in the country and a fifth of our youth population. I think we have no choice but to foster the innovation in the country to become global knowledge economy. We made good progress in R&D and innovation, but if India has to take a major technology leap forward in the country, then we need to strengthen our deep tech innovation, especially in the disruptive technology areas, because these are the areas which will impact the socio-economic the challenges in the country, especially in the area of agriculture, health, transport, education, energy, and so on. As per the NASSCOM report published last year, we have 25,000 tech startup and 3,000 deep tech startup, out of which our own mission has about 800 startup in deep tech. I think this number is, as I said, that you must increase because this and especially these 2 national missions that we have in DST are likely to contribute to this. I take this opportunity to invite industry partnership in some of these initiatives at DST. We are soon going to have some kind of brainstorming, and especially when this national quantum mission is going to be launched in I think very soon, within next 2 weeks, I would say. We will have a national brainstorming to discuss the the industry partnership with in the various areas, especially the quantum communication and communication. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Very inspiring and very exciting, and thank you very much. Government is, I think, thinking ahead, thinking really ahead, which is fantastic. Can I now invite Mr. Arya Glickman, founder and director, HCT Sun India, for his opening remarks. Arya is from Israel, but has spent about 15 years in managing renewable energy in India with a focus on wind, small hydro, and solar power projects. Over to you, Arya.
Thank you. I'll take it from here. I'll sit down here. I'm actually one of the smaller companies here on the panel, and we're here as a case study about innovation and technology and how you could put those together. So as Vipin said, we are taking Israeli technology, we're manufacturing it here in India, in the solar world, and what does that do? I'll bring you guys into it. India had the goal, it was the goal of 175 gigawatt renewable, which was extremely ambitious, and it was achieved. So what happens when you actually succeed? They say, okay, take a bigger target. And the target now for 2030 is 500 gigawatts, which is huge. The solar part of that today is around 65 gigawatts, around 40%, 35, 40%. In order to achieve the 500 gigawatts, right, and the solar part of that, we're talking about, even at the same ratios, we're talking about somewhere around 200 gigawatt of solar. If today India is in the 3rd place in the world in solar energy, it would push us right up there, okay, to the top. One of the biggest hurdles, we're going to get to the innovation, is land. Why? Because, to give you an idea, to hit 185 gigawatt of solar, the land that would be needed would be over 3,500 square kilometers, or roughly 3 times of Delhi and NCR. So India has that land, but it's in very remote locations. So if we want to go and put solar there, transmission lines to build them, you're talking about in the thousands of crores. Actually, lakhs of crores. It's a huge investment in the infrastructure to get it there. There's another option, and that is dual usage of land. And that is actually right now here a possibility. It's being done already a little bit in India. It's much more being done overseas in smaller countries. Israel's one of them, but also in Europe. And the concept is that you could use it both for farming and for solar at the same time in a large, very large fashion that is economically feasible for both. What are you talking about? So it's basically both farming and solar need sun. So it's about sharing the sun resources with a tracker. So it depends on the type of crop you're growing and what stage of the crop. We actually know how much sun, right, the crop needs at which stage. For example, if it's a grain or a legume, you could even give it as a tracker. It moves throughout the day. You could give it a command to go 90 degree. And you have a wall. Tractor goes through. You could move your drip irrigation to the top, so you're actually having dual usage of water as well. Meaning as you're coming to, instead of putting the water straight in the field, you put it on top, it cleans your panels, increases your efficiency. Throughout the day, you know how much sun you need, and you come and you go, and if the crop now needs more sun, you actually tilt away a little bit and lower your production, just a drop, and you actually give the growth what it needs. What does it allow you to do? It allows you to go and have dual usage, the same land that the farmer uses for farming, he continues being a farmer. He doesn't have to stop being a farmer if you want to go solar. And the solar is on top. Just to give you an idea of the financials behind it. If you're doing trackers anyway, today the land acquisition is so complicated that it is 10 to 12% of the cost of a project, and that's if you're going cheap. Here, you're talking about the extra cost of the project would be somewhere around 5%, and the rest of the money you actually give as a lease to the farmer. So the farmer today who's getting 80,000 rupees to a lakh per acre for his crops, you could actually go and give him another 30,000 or something like that, another 30 to 50% of his income as a lease on his land. So the farmer's getting a higher revenue, your total cost of project goes down, the land is not an issue, and you go and use innovation to go and solve one of the biggest bottlenecks that you have in the industry today of solar. So, just to share with you guys a little bit like a working example of what it looks like when innovation comes into an industry that is already mature but wants to grow a lot more, and you have to go and, as we say here, innovate or perish. So that was just a small example.
An excellent example, and obviously done, Arya, with complete hands-on. For you to talk about land acquisition in India is remarkable, tremendous, and may you continue to succeed. May I now invite Mr. Vinod Sood. He is the co-founder and MD of Hughes System Corporation, a digital engineering services and solutions company, and over 38 years that he's built high-performance teams at premier R&D organizations in India. Over to you, Vinod.
Thank you, Vipin, and thank you, CII, for inviting me. In fact, today afternoon, I am on another panel and a very related but slightly a diametrical opposite topic, and that topic is the emerging technology roadmap, hype or reality. And today we are talking about innovate or perish, the technology leap. So as we all know, technologies are seeping into every aspect of our lives. Technology is becoming all pervasive and getting integrated across the enterprise, right from enhancing the customer experience, redesigning and reconfiguring business processes and operations to make them more optimal, efficient, and friction-free. New age technologies are becoming mainstream and part of our everyday lives. Words like blockchain, metaverse, AI ML, quantum computing are becoming part of our everyday lingua, and technology is actually becoming social. Over a period of time, this will become the norm and the way we do business. Enterprises and industries across the world realize the importance of technology and digitalization during the pandemic to provide resilience, to provide continuity of supply chains, and for connecting consumers, vendors, and employees. In fact, technology is disrupting business models. What actually I should say is creating new businesses where tech is at the center of the business and not at the periphery, which used to be the case till few years back. And this is the reason why we all have started calling this decade as the techade, one where technology is central to life and business. And the entire world actually is looking at technology to solve all kinds of problems, not just business problems, but also issues related to environment, to sustainability, workforce diversity, and other societal issues. In the long run, digital technologies would have far-reaching impact to change the overall working of the larger society by bringing in transparency and efficiency. In an uncertain economic environment, which is what we are living in today, it becomes even more critical for businesses to unlock the cost and operational efficiencies by adopting technology and pursuing digitalization, freeing both time and resources to drive business value. So I don't have any doubt that enterprises, businesses, governments, institutions, in fact, everyone will have to innovate, adopt, assimilate, and imbibe technology to survive and thrive. Let me very briefly talk about few technologies which are going to be the key, which will enable this transformation. The first and foremost is cloud computing, which is going to be a fundamental element which is powering digital transformation. Cloud offers scalability and agility that is needed for this transformation. Cloud enables IoT, enterprise level security, rapid prototyping, and application of AI and ML. A unified, fully managed and secure data and AI platform that supports both hybrid and multi-cloud architecture, I think, is what is going to make a major difference. The second one is enterprise mobility, which again is a key enabler. Enterprise mobility enables employees to be connected to the fundamental business processes and the various applications and provide a collaborative framework where employees can work wherever they are, office, home, hybrid, remote, whatever. And last but not the least, I think security is going to be a very, very critical factor. More than 60% of the digital businesses will suffer major service disruption due to security issues. Typically, the aspect of security comes in very late, and it actually takes an ongoing program to fail to make the stakeholders realize the importance of security. So it's going to be very, very important that an integrated and a comprehensive business security solution that works across platforms and is cost effective is put in place. Now, very quickly, let me talk about few of the ingredients which is going to make this happen, which is going to make this a successful exercise. One of the things which is going to be very, very important is to make technology part of your everyday life, part of all aspects of business, is that it needs to be driven from the top. This is going to be a change of mindset. It's not just implementing new technologies, but also transforming the organization within to take advantages of the possibilities that the new technologies will provide. It is important to also realize that companies will transform at different speeds and pace and with different outcomes. So transformation is going to be a journey and not a destination. This is something all of us should keep in mind. The second thing which I want to talk about is that we need to nurture a culture of innovation and experimentation. And what this means is that we need to take risks. So there has to be willingness to take risks and also tolerance for failure. Because innovation, experimentation essentially means that some projects will fail. Agile teams, flatter organization structures to improve speed of execution and decision making, I think these will be some of the key elements. And last but not the least, I think we all should realize the importance of building skill set, competencies, and reskilling our workforce. Ability to appreciate and understand technology and connect this technology with the business is going to be the key. An environment which promotes and encourages continuous learning, nurtures innovation, will be the only way to stay relevant when the velocity of change and technology disruption is very high. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vinod. Technology will have to be at the center, not at the periphery, is very well said. I'd like to now invite Mr. Yoji Takuji-san, Chairman and MD, Mitsubishi Corporation India, a commerce graduate, has over 3 decades of experience in Mitsubishi Corporation. Takuji-san.
Thank you very much for giving me this valuable opportunity to be part of this session. In this session coverage, I'd like to explain how we understand that the business landscape are changing quickly and how to challenge the growth of business in such situation. So we believe that the world is under very serious uncertainty, and especially during the last decade, such as a conflict between US and China and Ukraine invasion by the Russia, and the food and energy security risk is arising. And in this situation, it is becoming increasingly difficult to separate economics and politics. And we are facing a major challenge as we work to rebuild and strengthen the sustainable, resilient global supply chain. And we, Mitsubishi Corporation, believe that it is necessary to make full use of our long-lasting partnership with global partner and network driven by digital technology. So in order to lead the innovation and the growth, Mitsubishi Corporation launched the energy transformation strategy, we call the EX strategy, and promoting renewable energy and next generation energy business. And the digital transformation, we call DX strategy, to create the future by promoting 2 strategies in an integrated manner. So these 2 strategies aim to improve industrial competitiveness and realize a highly productive society by combining the diverse industrial knowledge and digital technologies that we have learned through our transaction in various fields. We plan to invest a total of $25 billion, including $10 billion in energy transformation-related investment during the period of fiscal year 2022-2024. As a part of our DX activity, we've been facing with the challenge of how to utilize the big data obtained from the large value chain connecting Japan and the world that we have constructed over many years. In order to solve this problem, we are just trading company and started investing, but really we forced to create our own unique dialogue and formed a company called MC Digital, who has a certain number of data analysts. In 2012, we entered the SUV market in India to manufacture and sell business with Isuzu Motor in India and get into the Indian market more deep, Indian automobile market more deeply. We also enter the after-sales service in automobile business with the TBS Group, an Indian conglomerate in South India. And this business utilizes digital technology to aggregate garage and connect users, and through an app to supply various parts and aim to improve business efficiency and user convenience by making use of the data obtained through the process. We also believe that realization of these transformation and depending on the development of human resources. MC Digital I introduced is also developing human resources to create unique algorithm to solve complex problems. And at the same time, it is important to build network with partners around the world. One of the unique activity in the various projects that we held last year to celebrate 70th diplomatic establishment, diplomatic relationship between Japan and India was the Ideathon, which is combined word of idea and marathon. So it is a business idea contest for the students from the India and Japan, conducted last September with the cooperation of CII, Japanese Embassy, and the Japanese Chamber of Commerce in India. And we selected 20 students from both countries, Japan and India, selected from 5,000 candidates from various top university and institute, gathered in Delhi and traveled 900 kilometers to Varanasi together, and gaining the insight from this journey, conducted business idea contest at trust with their digital, their capability of digital technology. So many great ideas were presented at the Ideathon. But more than that, seeing the 40 young people from both countries working on the new innovation while deepening their friendship, I was so confident that they will be the core human resource to future innovation also. This Ideathon is recognized by both Prime Minister of Japan and India, Mr. Modi and Mr. Kishida, and to follow up for having 75th anniversary of bilateral relationship. So I believe that in order to bring major challenge for the kind of technology leap, it is necessary to continue and build on innovation and transformation on a EX and DX integrated manner, and human resource development over the country, in various countries and regions. This will be common challenge of all participants here in session, I believe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tagochi-san. This ideathon must be very inspiring to see 40 young students from both India and Japan. May I now invite Kuo Pin, CEO of the NCS Group Singapore, for his remarks. Kuo leads NCS in executing its new vision that is committed to advancing communities by partnering with governments and enterprises to harness technology and bringing people together to make the extraordinary happen. Kuo, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Vipin. Well, I think you've articulated NCS vision very well. We are a company headquartered in Singapore. We are IT services provider, and we serve markets in Southeast Asia, Australia, and the Greater China region. And we like to think that one of the key purposes of NCS is really to advance communities wherever we are present. And we do this by partnering governments and enterprises to harness technology. So I think today's topic on innovation is very apt, and I'm going to share some thoughts on this. So firstly, technology is a double-edged sword. It can help us, but it also can potentially bring great disruptions and risks. So we have to harness technology with the right purposes. And to do that, one of the approach I would recommend is to ask the right questions. So today, I'd like to suggest 3 questions for a start. The first question, how critical is innovation to us? What if it wasn't COVID-19, but COVID-09 or COVID-1999? In 2009, if you recall, iPhone has just been born for a couple of years. We have 3G networks being rolled out in many countries. We have readily available voice conferencing capabilities, but we seldom see video conferencing. At that time, I think those of us who are fortunate, you may have telepresence offered by Cisco, but most companies will not have those capabilities. And if you go back 10 years, in 1999, there's no voice conferencing. That was the start of mobile phones, the first generation of feature phones. But in 2019, we have Zoom. We have the early phase of the mRNA vaccine technology. We had the prevalence of smartphones. And that allowed us to deal with COVID-19 in a very different way. We have mass adoption of telemedicine. We created work from home on a large scale. And we allow homeschooling. I think many countries have no choice. We all learn to live with COVID. But we managed to do so because of innovation. So in a way, innovation has saved us and addressed the challenges created by COVID-19. It is also because of technology that NCS was able to help the Singapore government during that period to enhance various IT systems and infrastructure, to put in place various vaccination and quarantine systems, and provide public services that make life easier during a very challenging time. The second question I would suggest is, can innovation lead to our demise? Today, if you look at the tech trends, there are many trends out there, but I will suggest 4 that really stand out. The first is generative AI. Many of you would have heard about ChatGPT, have tried it. In fact, yesterday, I think they launched a new version, GPT-4. Then there's Metaverse and Web3, as well as technologies around sustainability that is of key interest, as well as digital trust. The relentless drive of ICT technology will bring disruption and risk. For example, in many countries, I think it's already leading to massive automation and loss of jobs. There is a digital divide and increased inequality in mature markets, and also acceleration of cybercrime. I think those are very real risks that we're living in. So will this lead to what we see in the movies, right? Some of you may have seen the movies like The Matrix, iRobot, where we live in a world that humans no longer control that world. Now that is a scary, but not impossible future that we are actually creating. My third question is, then can innovation save innovation? I believe this is possible. I believe it is possible to harness new technology, new innovation, and advance our communities, and at the same time, put in mitigation steps to manage the risk. But we can't do this alone. We need a lot of concerted effort, where individuals, businesses, and governments work together. And besides technology, we will need other safeguards, such as regulation, education, and responsible development to be put in place. Those are the three questions I will ask. Now let's talk about the business models. Business models fundamentally are linked to technology innovations and will be shaped by emerging tech trends along the following dimensions. 1, customer identification. 2, customer engagement. 3, the value chain linkages. And 4, the various approach of monetization. I believe there are 3 models that are very much at play today. The first model is around innovation led by the big tech companies. Earlier I talked about generative AI. I think that is really happening very fast around us. It will supercharge a wide spectrum of existing business models with intelligent automation that improves the value chain linkages. There will also be interfaces that improve and transform the human to machine and human to customer interactions. It is already disrupting Google's monopolistic hold on the search market. And many enterprises are now asking the questions because now they have all this new imagination. What can they do with generative AI? That is the space to watch. The second business model will be led by the ecosystem. So not the big tech companies, but the ecosystem in general. Here you see a lot of developments around metaverse, around Web3, the ecosystem, the industries are coming together to look at new possibilities and new business platforms. Gaming is no longer restricted to people who play games. You will find gamification techniques being applied across various applications and industry. Finally, the third model, and I think this is where governments will play a key part, is really the government-led business model. Let's look at digital trust. Digital trust is very important. Digital trust can usher in a new generation of state-led or international body-led model. It can provide a signaling effect to attract other entities into collaborative R&D. It can also guide the direction of technology development at the national and international level that would otherwise not happen. Given the cross-border nature of cyber attacks, digital trust technologies are where governments can actively collaborate with the industry. Today, financial institutions in Singapore must now comply with MAS, or the Monetary Authority of Singapore, fairness, ethics, accountability, and transparency principles. The acronym for that is FEAT. This was issued in 2022 and laid out the ground rules for the responsible users of AI. Another example is in the green ICT arena. Green ICT for sustainability. This enables businesses to change their business model to varying degrees by maximizing material and energy efficiencies, thereby creating value from waste. It will also spur international collaboration and sustainability. An example is the Singapore and Australia collaboration by introducing a bilateral green economic agreement that was signed last year in 2022 to facilitate flows of environmental goods and services, green transition, finance, and clean energy. So in summary, we should expect more innovations to happen and appear in this fast-changing era. Innovations that can save as well as threaten us. I am also confident that we will see more big tech, ecosystem, and government-led business models to appear in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ko. And yeah, the ability to ask the right questions actually plagues us, but that is great. Can I now invite Kishore Balaji, Executive Director, Government Affairs, IBM South Asia. He has held several diverse leadership roles over his 28-year and has created and led high-performance teams across multiple functions. Before you start, Kishore, I just thought I'd mention to your audience, we'll have a Q&A, a short Q&A after this, and I just wanted to alert the audience that I'll ask the first question to Dr. Gupta, but after that, if there will be mics around, please be ready with your questions. Back to you, Kishore.
Thank you. Thanks for your kind introduction, Vipin, and thank you, CII, for putting together this stellar show today. And it's always a pleasure to be speaking in front of audience as august as you. Such a stellar platform, such a stellar co-panelist group that I'm part of. So really, really excited to be talking to you today, right? One central theme that you saw everybody speak about is technology. Somehow we've come to this new world that you can't talk of innovation without really talking of technology in some sense. And I believe we live in some very, very interesting times, right? While technology and the ecosystem have come together to solve some of the unprecedented issues like COVID and whatnot, there still remain issues of, poverty, climate, war, and whatnot that we are still not really able to solve. And I think technology is the cheapest and the most effective ways to solve some of these challenges. That said, we live in a period where technology is in the core of solutions, not by a fluke. It's not by a chance. It's by a purpose. Humanity has seen several such quantum leaps in past, right? We've seen an era in late 18th century where mechanization happened. Then you had production modernization that led to auto industry and so on and so forth growing. Late 20th century, we saw the advent of PCs and automation and how that brings about a change. And today when we speak about technology amidst every disruption that we are seeing, that is what is pushing us into the core of what I call the fourth industrial revolution. So it's not a chance, it is by design. And you would see more and more of technology happening everywhere and disrupting all our lives. And I believe disruption is a force of a positive, right? Everything that you saw in a science fiction movie, everything that we read in comic strips, men walking with bionic wings, flying with bionic wings, self-driven cars, all of it is coming true. And the pace of this will only get accelerated from here on, mind you. That said, like my previous speaker spoke, technology can, if controlled well, be really, really useful. And the onus to harness that is squarely on the ecosystem, right? It takes a village to solve this problem. We need government in the room, we need industry in the room, and we need everybody in the ecosystem to come together to see how can technology be harnessed as a force for good. So I will make probably 3 interventions before we open it up for Q&A, like Vipin said. First, government, right? I mean, we heard Vipin speak of an acronym called ICE, and I think that's very, very appropriate. The role of the government is to do 3 things, as I see. Incentivize, help create capacities, and enable coordination and cooperation, which will unlock the potential of industry coming together with academia and the ecosystem to really push forward technology-led innovation. Secondly, industry. I, for once, can speak for IBM. We are 112, and we've been truly, truly innovating to stay relevant in today's time and doing well. I don't know if you all know, for the past 30 years, IBM has been churning out maximum number of patents every year before we chose not to run the race anymore to focus on other emerging issues, right? And we also have a heritage of truly, truly working with governments and academia to be able to really look from our vantage on what is changing and how do we leverage the change to bring about an impact to the society. A very good example is quantum computing. Dr. Akhilesh spoke about how quantum is around the bend and is going to have unprecedented impact on everything, including climate to security. IBM, about 6-8 months back, rolled out extremely high-performance computing. We talk of about 400 plus qubits, and that is going up all the way to 1,000 in sooner times to come. Not only that, we also opened up access to IBM's quantum technology by way of cloud, and we rolled out Qiskit across the globe. While we believe India is still getting into the cusp and core of quantum, I would think otherwise. I think we are moving very, very fast ahead. Dr. Akhilesh, just to bring it to your notice, India today has 400,000 people plus who have already undergone KISS-KIT training and are waiting for opportunities that you and us can put together for them to really lap up. The second thing we think we do well is from a research standpoint, we enable skills. We work with all the key institutions that you can think of in India, including IIT Chennai, and we offer a breadth of skill continuum, if I may, right from skilling young girl kids in the school to adopt STEM career all the way up till advanced quantum skills, right? And it's not only IBM. Every company that I can think of which means well to the country, including several of my panelists here, are engaged in this space, and I think this tribe should grow. Lastly, ecosystem, academia and ecosystem, I think have an extremely critical role to play in doing three things: creating skill linkages, creating market linkages, and creating financial linkages, which I think is core to developing a research and research-driven entrepreneurial community. With that, I will pause, and I'm happy to take any questions as that come around. But in conclusion, to my mind, perishing is not an option. So let's innovate. Thank you.
Kishore, and I know IBM's doing a lot, and you talked of tech if controlled well. That's interesting. That's a tough one. But how do we harness tech? But let me first turn to Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, and then we'll invite questions from the audience. Extremely inspiring, tremendous way in the government is changing the thinking of the country, but specifically of industry, academia. The linkage between industry and academia, Kishore spoke about it, you spoke about it as well. We need to bring that together. And any first thoughts on that as to how we can strengthen this relationship?
Yeah, I think this is an area where we have been working for past so many years. But let me say that we still need to innovate the way government and industry should work together. The government works with a different mindset. First of all, this funding process is like we normally fund the academia. And then we expect academia to work with industry. So the whole lot of issue of procedure of how you work with the industry is somewhat indirect. So I think what we need a change of mindset, that this government, academia, and industry, they must work in tandem as one team, rather than a team which works in isolation with each other. Also, the way the public-private partnership model is being implemented in India, especially, we must learn from say country like US and other countries, even Japan and all. They work slightly different way. That the R&D and the at the lower TRL level, it is the area of research for the area of work for the academia, but higher TRL level, I think industry must take. So I think the idea is that once industry and academia work together, then they work seamlessly right from the beginning. Industry work with the academia, and the public-private partnership in large scale projects should be such that should be led by industry rather than led by government. Government must work at the support at the enabling level, and the industry must take the lead. Then only you can have a more innovation and more seamless connect between the academia and industry.
Tremendous, and thank you very much. And I'm sure that business model, or that model, sorry, will evolve over time. Any questions from the audience? We've very little time. Yes, ma'am, over there. A mic.
Good morning to all. Thank you so much for this very, very informative session. The question, myself, I'm Shantini Raja. I'm representing Bahrain Chamber of Commerce. I'm living in Bahrain and I'm a founder of a fintech company. So the question to Mr. Gupta ji is, so he was very well telling how he can support, the government of India can support internationally also. I'd like to know the Indians who is living out of India, if they're innovating, because we are continuously innovating many solutions which we are providing to the Middle East market. So is there anything, government of India supporting the Indians who are outside innovating, so which we can make use and we can take the product around the globe? This is the question. Thank you, Guptaji.
This is very important, In fact, as part of the consultation on the STI policy that I led, and I had discussions with Indian diaspora, 18 associations of Indian diaspora across the world I had discussions. And this is a question that I have been asking, what way you can contribute to India? Normally we talk about the grain gain. So okay, somebody has gone abroad, you bring them back, work here, and then contribute to India. But what emerges out of these consultations is that most of the NRIs, people of Indian origin, they are ready to contribute. They are very excited to contribute to India. But they want this contribution while they remain at their place. So what is called grain circulation. So in fact, this policy is being considered by government now, that how do we do it? And one area of bringing diaspora for the India is the technology indigenization. We are importing large number of technologies from abroad. But, to our surprise, really 1.9 million, Indians are working in different countries in the world in technology and innovation. And this is learning, so if we can just leverage that part. So in fact, to give you a short answer, that, our idea is to involve Indian diaspora in the technology indigenization for the country.
All the best, ma'am. I think it's a great question as well. Last question, then. Okay, you have the three hands. We'll go at the back, gentleman with the hat.
Good morning, and thanks a lot for the very inspiring discussion. As an ideation innovation evangelist in the last couple of years, last 10 years, I've been asking powerful questions. Thanks for really bringing that aspect. What I was asking, in fact, is interacting with a lot of farmers in India and the land challenge which you talked about it. Various walks of life have been looking forward for innovative solutions, what you just mentioned. So what my question to you is there a case study in India which we can share it with them, and what kind of a commercial model which they can leverage to basically tie up, connect with you, with them, and with your organization, and if they can really bring out that model and I believe run through the journey till 2030, what we are all running for. Thank you.
So I'll say quickly, because we have a lot of time, the answer is yes. We actually did it for sugarcane farmers up in Maharashtra. And we went with sugarcane because it's one of the tallest crops. So actually, financially viable, it's a little bit more complicated, but it's doable. But we basically said if it works on sugarcane, it'll work on anything.
Great, being signaled that we've got to vacate this room, but there's a question here, so we'll take that. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you. My name is Vandana Sitsai-Natoria. I'm from the Institute of Chartered Accountants, England and Wales. A couple of you mentioned failure, and failure being very important for innovation. In Asia, as we have hierarchical patriarchy as one of the things where we don't like to fail. What are your organizations doing to encourage failure and therefore encourage innovation?
Who would like to take that? Anybody volunteering to take that? Hierarchical patriarchy. So there seem to be no volunteers, but I'm sure somebody will.
It's more about how are you encouraging failure?
Absolutely.
With the idea of increasing innovation.
Yeah, so I can take that. And I speak for IBM and I speak for industry, right? First things first, it's an uncomfortable question, but it's okay to be uncomfortable, right? So I think organizations over the past decade have really embraced failure well. And the trick to be able to try and predict failure, to be able to address failure early, is to see how the innovation teams are mainstreamed with business teams, so that innovation doesn't happen in a corner of a room and comes back as a success or a failure. So they don't come like a child with a report card just the day before it needs to be signed, but they're part of the process of the organization development that encourages people to innovate faster, fail faster, and bring out results faster. So adjacency to businesses, adjacency to go-to-market teams, etc., have helped us really manage that problem. And I'm speaking for the industry. That said, there are several best-known methods of how organizations are becoming more open to open innovation, are encouraging ideation, idea management, and whatnot. So I think we haven't turned a leaf on it yet, but I think we are well within the journey to be able to enable something like that.
Last question, gentleman next to the lady. Last question, please.
Well, you just mentioned NRI, 75 years old. I'm based in Berlin. My question is to the gentleman from Israel. India and Israel, small countries, energy, water is required in agriculture. With your technology, my question is, what happens to small farmers who can hardly sustain their living, 10 rupees, 15 rupees, 10 rupees for a kilo of onion, and he cannot sustain his living? So are there any models where small farmers can get together in cooperatives for agriculture? But what happens to the electricity? Does it go into the national grid? The small farmer cannot manage to get the revenue. He's given his land. Are there some proposals to use the electricity in rural areas? For children in schools who could use IBM computers, but there's no electricity. This was my question. And Israel, my compliments. Germans, they say, bewundere. I admire your country with 6-7 million. What wonders you are doing in different fields. My compliments to Israel. Thank you.
So thank you. This is exactly what they were speaking here on the panel about cooperation of government and industry. Meaning, and when it comes to farmers specifically, there's a lot of cooperation needed. One is getting the product to market, right? In India, that's one of the big challenges of actually the produce that they could sell it or store it till the prices. Right now, it all comes to market at the same time. That's one of the challenges. Regarding, again, selling the electricity or how to set it up, there are some government initiatives. There's some more needed because, again, it's a whole new, the concept is a whole new concept. Either you're a utility or you're a farmer. Putting them together is going to need some work with the government of how to do that right. And we're already in talks. But again, the beauty is you could do it on small scale, on small levels, but to do it really big, as things grow, it will absolutely need government participation.
Thank you. I'm afraid we'll have to wind up over there. I'd like to just conclude with what Dr. Akhilesh Gupta said, the new Darwinism, Guptaji, if I might. It's no longer survival of the fittest, but the survival of the most innovative. With that, thank you to the panelists. Thank you for being a lovely audience. And to my colleagues in CII, thank you for putting it all together.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the eminent speakers for making such an illuminating session. But before we conclude, I request Mr. Vipin Sondhi to please give away a small token from our side to all the esteemed speakers. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your presence today and making this session an amazing one. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. I request all the esteemed speakers for a group photograph, please. Thank you so much. I request everybody to please move to Shahjahan Mall for the next session going on building resource efficient and reliant green supply chain. Shahjahan Hall. Thank you.
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Our today is about delivering excellence across business sectors. Our today is about building a future-ready nation. Our today has a strong foundation with community at its core. Our today is dedicated to the communities we serve. Our today is always about more than just today. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata, leadership with trust.
When you say faster, I just want to see how fast.
Very exciting day. Let the games begin. So we bring to you Airtel 5G Plus.
नेक्स्ट लेवल है, मतलब अब तो मेरी वीडियो फटाक से एकदम से अपलोड हो जाएगी. मुझे लेटेंसी की अहमियत पता है, मैं उसके लिए ज़्यादा एक्साइटेड हूँ.
The technology we have chosen is the one which is widely used in the world. Every 5G phone will work on it.
सिम चेंज करने का कुछ जरूरत नहीं था मुझे. नेटवर्क चेंज किया जाके एंड 5G enabled.
Airtel 5G Plus is environment friendly. I think that is very important. क्या मस्त स्पीड है रे?
It's revolution.
Magic.
Once you use it, you can't go back.
Effective supply chain management gives power to fulfill what your customers need, when and where they need it. How will you ensure that your supply chain is reliable, flexible, innovative and always strives for excellence?
Since the past 2 decades, TVS SCS has been the trusted name in the supply chain industry.
The legacy of TVS brand is more than 100 years old.
We are trusted for the value that we have created.
Our global presence with unmatched supply chain network pan-India, warehousing space of more than 19 million square feet, transportation network across 29 states, and a strong team of more than 10,000 professionals stand together to serve our esteemed customers.
We are trusted for the service that we provide.
Our end-to-end differentiated service portfolio is fitted as per customers' demands. We are partners in customers' journey.
We are trusted for the innovation that we can offer.
Strong technology backbone, integrated digital workflows, automated dashboards, visibility through control tower operation. We are just the way you want us, equipped with all the tools to make your supply chain resilient and agile.
We believe in the power of us.
When we partner with you, we are committed to offer you quality solutions. Together, we strive to achieve newer heights. Together, we stand united to write new success stories. For 28 years, the CII Partnership Summit has been driving India's global engagement. In 2023, as CII leads B20 India, the Partnership Summit will converge government and business leaders of the world and India with the theme of partnerships for responsible, accelerated, innovative, sustainable and equitable businesses. The CII Partnership Summit will align with B20 India. Global dialogues are strategized around 10 tracks. Inclusive GVCs for resilient global trade and investment. G20. Financing global recovery. Future of work, skilling and mobility. Energy, climate change and resource efficiency. Financial inclusion. Digital transformation. Technology, innovation and R&D. ESG in business. African economic integration. With country sessions, B2B meetings, state sessions and much more. The CII Partnership Summit 2023 is the world's meeting place this March. Partnerships for responsible, accelerated, innovative, sustainable and equitable businesses. CII's green initiatives. Welcome to the world of green buildings. CII's Indian Green Building Council, IGBC, with the support of all stakeholders, launched the country's first IGBC Net Zero Energy Building Rating System in 2018. This enabled the enhancement of green features of buildings by bringing in innovative and futuristic technologies. IGBC certified green buildings resulted in a tremendous reduction of energy and water consumption and also provided healthier places for people. CII's IGBC, set up over 2 decades ago, has launched many impactful and innovative initiatives. Today, IGBC has 31 different rating programs, 29 chapters across India, and 6,000 accredited professionals. With the active participation of all stakeholders, today India has achieved a major milestone of 10.22 billion square feet of registered green building footprint. India has become the second largest country in the world in green built area. From the places we stay, work, study, transit,
play, and worship. The green building movement is spreading across the country as India is witnessing enormous development over the next 5 decades. Going green and net zero is the only way forward. With the rich experience of over 2 decades, IGBC launched Mission on Net Zero on Earth Day 2021, which is in alignment with the Government of India's commitment of India becoming a net zero carbon emitter by 2070. We invite every citizen of our country to join the green and net zero building movement spearheaded by IGBC and make India the Jagat Guru in sustainability.
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are a $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Our today is about delivering excellence across business sectors. Our today is about building a future-ready nation. Our today has a strong foundation with community at its core. Our today is dedicated to the communities we serve. Our today is always about more than just today. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata, leadership with trust.
When you say faster, I just want to see how fast.
Very exciting day. Let the games begin. So we bring to you Airtel 5G Plus.
नेक्स्ट लेवल है, मतलब अब तो मेरी वीडियो फटाक से एकदम से अपलोड हो जाएगी. मुझे लेटेंसी की अहमियत पता है, मैं उसके लिए ज़्यादा एक्साइटेड हूँ.
The technology we have chosen is the one which is widely used in the world. Every 5G phone will work on it.
सिम चेंज करने का कुछ जरूरत नहीं था मुझे. नेटवर्क चेंज किया जाके एंड 5G enabled.
Airtel 5G Plus is environment friendly. I think that is very important. क्या मस्त स्पीड है रे.
It's revolution.
Magic.
Once you use it, you can't go back.
Effective supply chain management gives power to fulfill what your customers need, when and where they need it. How will you ensure that your supply chain is reliable, flexible, innovative and always strives for excellence?
Since the past 2 decades, TVS SCS has been the trusted name in the supply chain industry.
The legacy of TVS brand is more than 100 years old.
We are trusted for the value that we have created.
Our global presence with unmatched supply chain network pan-India, warehousing space of more than 19 million square feet, transportation network across 29 states, and a strong team of more than 10,000 professionals stand together to serve our esteemed customers.
We are trusted for the service that we provide.
Our end-to-end differentiated service portfolio is fitted as per customers' demands. We are partners in customers' journey.
We are trusted for the innovation that we can offer.
Strong technology backbone, integrated digital workflows, automated dashboards, visibility through control tower operation. We are just the way you want us, equipped with all the tools to make your supply chain resilient and agile.
We believe in the power of us.
When we partner with you, we are committed to offer you quality solutions. Together, we strive to achieve newer heights. Together, we stand united to write new success stories.
For 28 years, the CII Partnership Summit has been driving India's global engagement. In 2023, as CII leads B20 India, the Partnership Summit will converge government and business leaders of the world and India with the theme of partnerships for responsible, accelerated, innovative, sustainable and equitable businesses. The CII Partnership Summit will align with B20 India. global dialogues are strategized around 10 tracks. Inclusive GBCs for resilient global trade and investment. G20. Financing global recovery. Future of work, skilling and mobility. Energy, climate change and resource efficiency. Financial inclusion. Digital transformation. Technology, innovation and R&D. ESG in business. African economic integration. With country sessions, B2B meetings, state sessions and much more. The CII Partnership Summit 2023 is the world's meeting place this March. Partnerships for responsible, accelerated, innovative, sustainable and equitable businesses. CII's green initiatives. Welcome to the world of green buildings. CII's Indian Green Building Council, IGBC, with the support of all stakeholders, launched the country's first IGBC Net Zero Energy Building Rating System in 2018. This enabled the enhancement of green features of buildings by bringing in innovative and futuristic technologies. IGBC certified green buildings resulted in a tremendous reduction of energy and water consumption and also provided healthier places for people. CII's IGBC, set up over 2 decades ago, has launched many impactful and innovative initiatives. Today, IGBC has 31 different rating programs, 29 chapters across India, and 6,000 accredited professionals. With the active participation of all stakeholders, today India has achieved a major milestone of 10.22 billion square feet of registered green building footprint. India has become the second largest country in the world in green built area. From the places we stay, work, study, transit, play and worship. The green building movement is spreading across the country, as India is witnessing enormous development over the next 5 decades. Going green and net zero is the only way forward. With the rich experience of over 2 decades, IGBC launched Mission on Net Zero on Earth Day 2021, which is in alignment with the Government of India's commitment of India becoming a net zero carbon emitter by 2070. We invite every citizen of our country to join the green and net zero building movement, spearheaded by IGBC, and make India the Jagat Guru in sustainability. With the rich experience of over 2 decades, IGBC launched Mission on Net Zero on Earth Day 2021, which is in alignment with the Government of India's commitment of India becoming a net zero carbon emitter by 2070. We invite every citizen of our country to join the green and net zero building movement, spearheaded by IGBC, and make India the Jagat Guru in sustainability.
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Our today is about delivering excellence across business sectors. Our today is about building a future-ready nation. Our today has a strong foundation with community at its core. Our today is dedicated to the communities we serve. Our today is always about more than just today. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata, leadership with trust.
Hello, Mr. Draper, am I audible?
Yes, I'm right.
All right, I can hear you too.
Did you just want to test?
Yeah, so I was just testing.
Oh, okay, good. Your voice is very faint. I could hardly hear you.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. So we're starting in 2 minutes?
Yeah, we'll be starting in 2 or 3 minutes.
All right, good. Okay, thanks.
All right.
नेक्स्ट लेवल है, मतलब अब तो मेरी वीडियो फटाक से एकदम से अपलोड हो जाएगी। मुझे लेटेंसी की अहमियत पता है, मैं उसके लिए ज़्यादा एक्साइटेड हूँ।
The technology we have chosen is the one which is widely used in the world. Every 5G phone will work on it.
सिम चेंज करने का कुछ जरूरत नहीं था मुझे, नेटवर्क चेंज किया जाके एंड 5G enabled.
5G plus is environment friendly. I think that is very important. क्या मस्त स्पीड है रे?
It's revolution.
Magic.
Once you use it, you can't go back.
Effective supply chain management gives power to fulfill what your customers need, when and where they need it. How will you ensure that your supply chain is reliable, flexible, innovative and always strives for excellence?
Since the past 2 decades, TVS SCS has been the trusted name in the supply chain industry.
The legacy of TVS brand is more than 100 years old.
We are trusted for the value that we have created.
Our global presence with unmatched supply chain network pan-India, warehousing space of more than 19 million square feet, transportation network across 29 states, and a strong team of more than 10,000 professionals stand together to serve our esteemed customers.
We are trusted for the service that we provide.
Our end-to-end differentiated service portfolio is fitted as per customers' demands. We are partners in customers' journey.
We are trusted for the innovation that we can offer.
Strong technology backbone, integrated digital workflows, automated dashboards, visibility through control tower operation. We are just the way you want us, equipped with all the tools to make your supply chain resilient and agile.
We believe in the power of us.
When we partner with you, we are committed to offer you quality solutions. Together, we strive to achieve newer heights. Together, we stand united to write new success stories.
For 28 years, the Cii Partnership Summit has been driving India's global engagement. In 2023, as CII leads B20 India, the Partnership Summit will converge government and business leaders of the world and India with the theme of partnerships for responsible, accelerated, innovative, sustainable and equitable businesses. The CII Partnership Summit will align with B20 India. Global dialogues are strategized around 10 tracks. Inclusive GVCs for resilient global trade and investment. G20. Financing global recovery. Future of work, skilling and mobility. Energy, climate change and resource efficiency. Financial inclusion. Digital transformation. Technology.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning with a session on future of multilateralism. Please join me in welcoming on stage the speakers for the session. Mr. Veer S. Advani, Co-Chair B20 India Task Force on Inclusive GVCs for Resilient Global Trade and Investment and Chairman CII International and Trade Policy Council and Vice Chairman and Managing Director Blue Star Limited India. Dr. Rupa Chanda, Director Trade, Investment and Innovation Division, UNESCAP, Thailand. Dr. Peter Draper, Executive Director, Institute for International Trade, University of Adelaide, Australia. He'll be joining us virtually. Mr. Nicole Aloca, Director, Risk Compliance, Business Continuity and Quality, Astrotrade per Italia, Italy. Mr. Stephen Jacobi, Executive Director, the New Zealand International Business Forum, New Zealand. May I request Mr. Advani to please commence the session.
Great. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the session on the future of multilateralism. We have a distinguished guest on the panel today who will be sharing their insights and perspectives on this important topic. We have Dr. Rupa Chanda, who is the Director, Trade, Investment and Innovation at UNESCAP. Mr. Nicola Aloca joins us from Italy and is the Director, Risk, Compliance, Business Continuity and Quality at Autostrade per Italia. Mr. Stephen Jacobi is the Executive Director at the New Zealand International Business Forum. Joining us virtually is Dr. Peter Draper, who is the Executive Director in the Institute for International Trade at the University of Adelaide in Australia. And finally, we have a video recording from the Director General of the World Trade Organization before we close. Coming to the topic, what exactly does multilateralism represent and how is it evolving is what we're discussing today. Is it meeting our expectations and what are the changes that are required, if any? Multilateralism, the idea of cooperation among multiple countries to achieve common goals, has been the foundation of global governance for decades. Today, the world is facing numerous and complex challenges, ranging from climate change to resource scarcity and cybersecurity. These issues cannot be solved by any one country alone or even bilaterally. We need to work together, using our collective expertise, resources, and influence to find solutions. Pursuing multilateralism is the only way to ensure that the global community can tackle these challenges effectively. The G20 represents a critical platform for multilateral cooperation and coordination, and it has the potential to play a significant role in shaping the global economic agenda. It can help promote a more inclusive and a more sustainable global economy through common actions. India has argued that a representative multilateral structure that reflects contemporary geopolitics is needed to address current day challenges. The concept of multilateralism 2.0 or beyond has been much discussed for long, yet a consensus has eluded us. We are seeing so-called trade wars and weaponization of trade. Such actions, particularly on the trade and economic front, may have a negative impact on third-party players. Let me put forth a few points. First, in devising global solutions, there is a need to take into account the recognized principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, which permits nations the flexibility to create policies in line with the global requirements but adapted to national circumstances. Second, many areas require funding for least developed countries, and such finance will need to be found for areas such as infrastructure, climate action, and digital inclusion. Third, there are many actions that can be taken jointly by countries in larger or smaller groups. Some of these have been quite effective in addressing particular issues. The recent maritime agreement for marine protected areas was very encouraging. Fourth and last, new areas will keep coming up, and what we need is a mechanism to examine these as and when they come up, such as space, emerging technologies, etc. We're fortunate to have a very knowledgeable and diverse group of experts with us, and I look forward to hearing their perspectives on this important topic. With that, may I request Dr. Rupa Chanda, Director, Trade, Investment and Innovation Division at UNESCAP, to share her perspectives.
Good morning, I should say good afternoon, everybody. I was a little, I was not really sure what aspect of multilateralism I should focus on, because there was no specific area mentioned. Of course, one immediately thinks of trade and global trade system, architecture, WTO, when one talks of multilateralism. But I thought, let me keep things a little broad and set the context, and I'm sure my fellow speakers will be talking on specific aspects. So let me be provocative and just say, when a new monarch is declared, we say the king is dead, long live the king. On similar lines, one could say multilateralism is dead, long live multilateralism. Why am I using this contradictory phrase? Well, on one hand, we are seeing an undermining of multilateralism because of growing unilateral measures, protectionism. There's growing skepticism about the benefits that it's not been even across countries. There's also the geo-economic shifts that we are seeing, the dysfunctionality of the WTO's dispute settlement mechanism. So a lot of, I think, doubt regarding whether multilateralism can deliver. But I also say long live multilateralism, because we need to revive it, we need to redefine it and give it a new form and approach. That's where I'm coming from in my contradiction. So as I said, I'll consider multilateralism very broadly. Let me present my thoughts on three aspects. One is the common challenge multilateralism must address in future. What is the key issue, I think, cutting across different areas? Second is the scaffolding that is needed to redefine and strengthen multilateralism. How do we need to look at it? And finally, because we are at B20, what role can the G20 process, the dialogues that are taking place across various tracks, how can they help in redefining multilateralism or giving it momentum? So what's the key challenge confronting multilateralism more broadly? I would say it's the fragmentation of global governance and the need for stronger institutional frameworks to forge consensus on issues of common interest. I'll give you examples across various areas. The most obvious one, as I said, is in the context of global trade and the global trade architecture. That's because I would say the rise of two phenomena in the last 2 decades. One is the growing dispersal of production and emergence of complex value chains through trade and investment flows. Second is the surge in regional trade blocs and bilateral and plurilateral arrangements seen since the establishment of the WTO. Now, GVCs, RVCs at one level, they do help countries integrate into global production networks, but they also fragment by creating division among countries, by entrenching buyer-supplier networks, which sometimes it's difficult for certain firms and countries to enter. So you end up with new hubs, and then there are countries at the periphery. Also, in terms of the various segments of the value chain, the R&D, the IP, the high value areas, again, there are divides that are created with some capturing most of the gains. Similarly, the coexistence of different kinds of trade agreements, fragments countries by creating production linkages among members and excluding non-members. More importantly, it fragments international trade law with differing rules and provisions. And these have implications for domestic policies, make it even more of an imperative to have regulatory harmonization becomes that much more difficult. Let me come to another area, because I'm sure that trade will be talked about at length. Let me come to another area, which is global health governance. That's become evident during the COVID-19 pandemic that there are huge divides in this area. The pandemic has exposed long-standing gaps in public health, exacerbated chronic inequities. It's also shown how fragmented and underfunded health systems are worldwide. This fragmentation is reflected in divisions among countries in terms of R&D capacity, technology available for vaccines and essential health products, the divide in financing and manufacturing capacity, in logistics, countries with access, countries without access, those with the capacity, those without capacity, those completely dependent on suppliers to protect their populations, and those which could vaccinate their populations many times over. The global health governance architecture, I would say, failed to address these divides, despite creating special facilities for improving access in time of crisis. Added to this were the ad hoc trade restrictions and regulatory barriers, which further fragmented trade and supply chains and aggravated inequities in access. There's now growing call for alternate global health governance mechanisms and new models which can work better in times of crises. A third area of fragmentation I'd like to briefly highlight is in data governance. Today, there's a growing threat of data fragmentation arising from protectionist challenges and regulatory heterogeneity across countries. These threaten to fragment the world of seamless data transfers, with implications for investments, startups, innovation, and prospects for digital trade, which is a huge area of trade. The number of data localization measures in force around the world has more than doubled in 4 years, from 35 countries implementing 67 such barriers in 2017 to 62 countries imposing 144 restrictions today. Such measures undermine the potential for shared data governance and risk fragmenting countries into groups. One, with those having open, interoperable data sharing frameworks and harmonized data regulations, and those outside the group with different principles, processes, and safeguards. Unlike in the case of health, there is no established governance framework, and there's growing risk of fragmentation even before such an architecture and consensus emerges. The fourth area, which is not much talked about, is in the context of international migration. Global migration has been governed by a patchwork of international institutions and instruments, which have failed to address strong power asymmetries between sending and receiving nations. This approach to migration has resulted in unilateral ad hoc policies facilitating and restricting migration, unethical and exploitative practices, and an overall failure to ensure that migration is mutually beneficial to both source and recipient countries. There are many other areas. I think climate is another area, because when you think of any sort of common, the larger public good, obviously the global governance mechanisms become very important. So let me turn to what should future multilateralism look like. Yes, I'll be rather generic because it's very difficult, but I think we know the elements that need to define this future multilateralism. It will need to be much more inclusive than it's been in the past, more flexible, up to date with technology and regulations, willing to give much more space to the private sector. Because of the fast nature and the rapidly changing regulations and technologies, it's not possible for governments to be really keeping pace. This is needed to bridge the growing divides. This means being more attuned to the needs of the poorest countries and segments, keeping pace with and being more sensitive to emerging trends, issues, and challenges, being much more resilient to unexpected shocks, shifting alliances, and geopolitical considerations. Most importantly, I think the new perspective we need is to learn from and build on other processes, and more importantly, have developmental objectives at their core. So let me explain what I mean by that. What is the scaffolding that multilateralism really needs? The overall approach to future multilateralism, regardless of which issue, whether you're looking at data or migration or trade and so on, is to turn the very elements which we see as causing fragmentation into opportunities. Because those elements are not going to go away. Those pressures for fragmentation will not go away. But can you leverage those and create opportunities out of them? This, I think, is possible through a building block and learning from good practices approach, a learning from alliances approach, and something like a community of practice that can inform constantly. For instance, in the case of the global trading system, while regional and bilateral agreements are at one level a challenge, at another level, they present an opportunity to set new benchmarks, address new issues, develop new negotiating modalities, and learn from outcomes and good practices. Between the insular nature of unilateralism and the unwieldiness of multilateralism actually lie these other processes. And that's why I think we're seeing much more momentum here. They can be regional, sub-regional, cross-regional, plurilateral, whatever. In my view, they will increasingly have to inform the multilateral architecture and its agenda, given the growing complexity of issues. Instead of seeing them as a failure of multilateralism, can we see them as a means to strengthen multilateralism, to build confidence, to demonstrate outcomes, and serve as building blocks? This, of course, requires balancing the content of and the approach to issues that are discussed so that they represent the wider interests of the membership rather than just a select group of countries. Resolutions and guiding principles adopted in various fora, including, say, for instance, the G20, especially by leading developed and developing countries, and which are in the larger interest, should find their way into the multilateral processes rather than having to seek consensus afresh on these issues. Similarly, if you take the case of global health, future multilateralism may need to consider new models for research, production, procurement, and distribution of essential vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics. Multilateral institutions will have to rely more on regional and sub-regional models or coalitions of the willing to improve access to and affordability of these essential health products. There are also lessons from the pandemic which can surely be taken into multilateral discussions on IP, technology transfer, and reforms in the global health architecture. Across issues today which pose a challenge to multilateralism, whether on sustainable development provisions, digital economy, e-commerce, we can find approaches and guidelines from other forums. Future multilateralism has to learn from these initiatives and turn them into building blocks. In some sense, future multilateralism will look different. It would consist of multiple hubs and spokes, perhaps a more decentralized, dispersed array of groupings and coalitions which inform and deliberate, but to realize common global objectives. Now that brings me to the role of the G20 and how the G20 can play a role in reviving and redefining multilateralism. It is relevant as many members of the G20 are parts of important coalitions, plurilateral initiatives, regional blocs, and bilateral arrangements, which have defined some of these things that I'm saying could serve as building blocks. The G20 can serve as a forum where its members can share their experiences and best practices, as they do, encourage more open regionalism, enable confidence building without necessarily getting into binding commitments. It can inform and help advance discussions in other forums. It can help forge consensus on issues such as capacity building, funding, aid for trade, trade finance, global commons such as health, environment, digital public goods, which are all being discussed. In many ways, the G20 is unique because its membership has all the major developed and developing countries, some of whom are also spokespersons for LDCs and other developing countries, as well as important members of major blocs. Further, the rotation of the presidency permits introduction of new issues, reflecting the diversity of interests among its members, while maintaining continuity on earlier issues. So the scope to learn from good practices, templates, and successful initiatives is considerable, while remaining conscious of the developmental differences and capacities among the member countries. The North-South and South-South consensus building opportunities within G20 are significant, and decisions taken here can actually give momentum and signal for multilateral discussions. Another important aspect is the structure of the discussions at G20. I think this is very important going forward because multi-stakeholder engagement through various tracks, task forces, and working groups is going to be the way multilateralism has to advance in future. This enables you a multidimensional approach to many issues by taking different perspectives on board. Most importantly, G20 goes beyond traditional regionalism because its members come from all across. It's an important cross-regional platform that can actually strengthen multilateralism. So I started with a traditional saying. Let me end with an analogy. G20 members are the warp, and the priority issues and tracks are the weft, which are discussed across them. Together, they can strengthen the fabric of multilateralism. Thank you.
Thank you. May I now request Mr. Nicola Aloca, Director, Risk, Compliance, Business Continuity and Quality at Autostrade per Italia, to share his views.
Thank you very much. It is a great privilege and joy to be speaking to you. Today for me it's a perfect mix of business and pleasure. Every chance to visit India is an opportunity to enrich my culture, broaden my horizons, and deepen my understanding of this amazing country. I would like to talk about a global cross-cutting issue that the new pact on multilateralism has to consider. Corruption is the global cross-cutting issue that we must face together to guarantee a sustainable future and progress on long-term challenges. If we allow corruption to deprive the next generation of key resources such as healthcare, education, security and safety standards, environmental rights, social welfare, we will inflict an intolerable burden of inequality on our children. Therefore, we must have the courage to admit that it is possible to eliminate corruption. We must have the intellectual honesty to give to this target a proper dignity within the UN SDG agenda. We need a new vision. We need to activate a new path towards an 18 SDG as zero corruption. The race to zero corruption is our great responsibility. It is a practical and necessary step towards a sustainable, fair, real economy. It is possible to eliminate corruption, but it takes courage and it requires a multi-stakeholder, holistic and collective approach. A good example of a multi-stakeholder approach could be the Zero Corruption Manifesto issued by the Business at OECD Anti-Corruption Committee last December, which summarized the 10 golden rules in the fight against corruption, boosting our race to zero. It is a multi-stakeholder paper that has the ambition of breaking bias and enable cultural change. It can be supported by public and private organizations, corporations, and business representatives. And it will be one of the main instruments to sponsor the 18th SDG. Now, I will cherry-picking some golden rules of the manifesto that perfectly match with the subject of this session. I will start from the golden rule number 3. It says, stimulate responsible conduct. Developing a culture of integrity, transparency and ethics within any context, any entity, any government, any jurisdiction is vital. All formal organizations must be committed to pursuing social responsibility goals. This means that, for example, corporations should evaluate their actions not only from an economic and financial point of view, but also considering the social impact of these actions in the context where they happen. This means that the profit generated outside ethical barriers could not be considered as profit anymore. This means that there is no trade-off between performance and compliance, results and use, business and value. Another key word in responsible conduct is education. And we should integrate school and university degrees with specific courses dedicated to responsible conduct, because effective education programs translate into a better equipped, skilled, and future-ready population. In other terms, organizations should promote and foster the contribution to sustainable development by offering training and guidance on responsible business conduct through the supply chain. Now I will jump on the golden rule number 6, collective actions for multi-stakeholder approach. Establishing trustworthy relationships between corporations, government, institutions is crucial to maximize the contribution in the race to zero and to level the playing field. Collective actions are an instrument that enhances public-private cooperation through the effective dissemination of best practices, which are vital in order to build a sustainable business ecosystem with zero corruption. And trust is a key element to enable cultural changes, eliminating silos among different stakeholders. And in order to assure trust, we need technology. In fact, in the Golden Rule number 7, it says, tech for trust and transparency. The use of modern technology, especially in compliance contexts, can be a tremendous opportunity for both public and private organizations to timely detect anomalies, improve transparency and efficiency. The Golden Rule number 8 perfectly fits what the Minister Goya, I hope that I pronounced well, said in the opening remarks. It says, think global and act local. Actions and behaviors we manifest locally have to be inspired by global vision, respecting the peculiarities of local contexts. This means that when I design a solution, I have to take into consideration global best practices. In this sense, G20, through the policies, can help us. But when I implement a solution, I have to take care of cultural differences and of the peculiarities of the local context. This is the building block approach mentioned by Dr. Chanda. We have to implement solutions through a building block approach. I will go on the last golden rule, that is a cross-cutting issue. The benefits from zero corruption have a positive impact on the achievement of the other SDG. The benefits of zero corruption have a positive impact on global peace and prosperity. I'd like to conclude with the essential truth about zero corruption, which can be summed up in 3 sentences. It's on, it's us, it's a must. It's on because we have pushed the button and it is already happening. It's us because only together can we make it happen. As the colleague said, we need to work together. And it's a must. Zero corruption exists because we do not have plan B. There are no alternatives. So please join me in the promotion of the 18th SDG in order to build a better world characterized by global peace and prosperity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. May I request Mr. Stephen Jacoby, Executive Director at the New Zealand International Business Forum, to give us his views, please.
Namaskar, tēnā rā koutou katoa. Greetings to you all in the language of the Maori people of Aotearoa, New Zealand. New Zealand, that great cricket-loving country. And those of you who've been following the cricket recently know that there have been significant developments in recent days that New Zealand played a small role in. That is not why I've been invited here today, however. Congratulations to CII and to the organisers of this remarkable event for bringing us all together. Although we come from different parts of the world, all of us have a major stake in the future of multilateralism and the rules that underpin the world order. There's no doubt that the world is facing multiple crises. A polycrisis is the word I've heard used at this event. Any one of these crises would challenge the world order, but together they create a perfect storm. That makes the environment against which we are doing business both highly complex and highly uncertain. Just as we were beginning to find our way out of disease and lockdown, with India leading us very strongly in that direction, we are now confronted by another pandemic this time a pandemic of global geopolitical conflict and inflation. Pandemic plus war plus inflation, ladies and gentlemen, are a toxic mix. Add to that food insecurity, energy insecurity, and the ever-present risks of dangerous climate change, which are only growing in intensity, including in my home country of New Zealand. These global challenges are far beyond the power of any one country or any one government to solve. Unfortunately, the level of political will in the world right now to address these challenges together is coloured by geopolitical difference, which frustrates our ability to work together. And it was no wonder when speaking to G20 foreign ministers in Delhi just a few weeks ago, Prime Minister Modi went so far as to say that global governance has failed in some key areas. That is why it is good to remind ourselves at a conference such as this of the intrinsic value and purpose of multilateralism. I come from a small country located far away from many of the world's most troubled hotspots. New Zealand is a young nation, but has been fortunate to have been present at the creation of many of the great multilateral institutions, including the United Nations, the Bretton Woods institutions, and the World Trade Organization. We in New Zealand are a nation of joiners. If there's something to join, you can be sure that New Zealand will put up its hand and will want to work constructively to find outcomes that address the problems needing to be solved. But New Zealand's disposition towards multilateralism is not just high-minded internationalism. It is also enlightened self-interest. The fact is that smaller countries have even more of a stake in the international order than larger ones. We depend on international organizations to make progress on the things that we in New Zealand care deeply about, including human rights, development, and environmental protection. And we also depend on international rulemaking to uphold our national sovereignty. We cannot force larger players to take actions to suit our national interests, or, more to the point, to desist from taking actions that harm our national interests. We rely on international rules, rules which we have had a hand in making and which can be upheld on the merits of the case rather than on size or political power. Take, for example, the World Trade Organization. The WTO, as you know, is the place where trade rules are made and where trade disputes are settled. It is of paramount importance to us as business because it provides the legal underpinning against which trade is conducted. And it is an organization where all members, large and small, have an equal voice. That is not to say that the outcomes or the institution itself are perfect. I hope Director General Ngozi isn't listening to me right now. It's not to say it's perfect, but far from it. The fact is that New Zealand, like many countries, has not only benefited from successive rounds of trade liberalisation in the WTO, but we have been able to challenge some of the biggest trading partners when they have not followed the rules. We have taken WTO cases against trade giants, including our best friends in Australia, the United States, the European Union, and Canada. And we have won every case we have taken. Now, India, of course, is a world away from New Zealand in size and scale. But like New Zealand, has gained a great deal from the multilateral rules-based trading system. WTO rules have enabled new trade opportunities across many of the sectors where India is already and aspires to be in the future a global powerhouse, including in services and manufacturing. In the agriculture sector, where India has a number of sensitivities, WTO rules have helped create new markets for important exports such as rice and sugar, pulses and wheat. Even so, agricultural reform remains a work of progress in the WTO. India is a key and influential member of the WTO and played a pivotal role in concluding the 12th ministerial meeting last June. And India's ongoing leadership, including of the world's developing countries, will be critical in helping to shape and give impetus to the future of the WTO system at the 13th ministerial conference next February. Today, India has an enormous responsibility as chair of the G20 and B20 processes and is clearly rising to this challenge with the theme of one Earth, one family, one future. Now, G20 is not an instrument that New Zealand can claim to join, but your deliberations will undoubtedly have an impact on global economic management and therefore be of close interest to us also. And I have been really privileged to have heard the various discussions about the G20 while I have been in Delhi at this forum. Finding international consensus is never easy. It requires leadership, tenacity, and skill. The magnitude of the problems we face will require nothing less. And if we've learned anything in the last few years, it is surely that global problems do in fact require global solutions. But ongoing reform of multilateral institutions to make them more fit for purpose is clearly required. Increasing transparency, boosting the capacity, particularly of developing and least developed countries, to participate effectively should be a key objective. The world's advanced economies have a big role to play, and the G20, with its own diverse makeup, is a particularly useful forum to encourage these initiatives, as we heard just a moment ago. But this is not to suggest that the multilateral institutions should turn inwards or refrain from trying new ideas. Let's look again at the WTO, which, despite its importance, is today facing an existential crisis. This is revealed most starkly by its inability to conclude the Doha Development Agenda of multilateral trade negotiations, and the WTO's dispute settlement mechanisms being rendered unworkable by the inability to appoint judges to its appellate body. Some WTO members, including New Zealand, have established a multi-party interim appeal arbitration arrangement to continue the dispute resolution process in the meantime. No one pretends that such interim arrangements are optimal solutions, but they are preferable to allowing critical functions of the WTO to be paralysed. Nor do they absolve any party of the responsibility to work to find enduring solutions to the problems they see in the institution. We need real and constructive engagement from all members to develop practical, workable answers. And in a similar way, some members of the WTO have looked to advance the negotiating agenda through a series of plurilateral initiatives. I am well aware that India and others have concerns about these initiatives for systemic reasons, and these things are being worked through at the moment. But these are open and inclusive negotiations in which all are invited to participate. In fact, more than 110 WTO members are taking part in them. Plurilateral initiatives like these, which are respectful of WTO principles, an extremely important point, respectful of WTO principles, and are subject to transparency and scrutiny by the contracting parties, are useful ways of continuing to maintain the credibility and momentum of the WTO at a time when the broader multilateral negotiation process has all but stalled. Today, the world faces a seemingly endless array of problems and challenges. Geopolitics, climate change, food and energy insecurity are amongst the biggest. The way we respond to them as countries, but more particularly for us here today as businesses, the way we respond to them will be defining for future generations. India and New Zealand are long-time friends. Commonwealth and cricket, yes, cricket again, have been unifying bonds. Both of us are international citizens who care about the future of the world and our two countries' place in it, and other countries' place in it as well. I'm delighted that the relationship between India and New Zealand is growing in intensity and exchange. And I'd like to thank the CII once again for the opportunity to attend this important partnership summit. With our distinct interests and experiences, India, New Zealand, and all of you have much to offer by working more closely together. And it can only be to the advantage of us all if multilateral cooperation can be enhanced and lead to a brighter future for all our citizens. Thank you. Kia ora.
Thank you so much. May I now request Dr. Peter Draper, Executive Director in the Institute for International Trade at the University of Adelaide, Australia, to address us virtually. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Avani, and thank you very much to the CII for inviting me to address you today. Quite a lot has already been said, and I don't want to repeat it. I thought what I might do, and given the nature of my vocation, is take a slightly more academic perspective and look at some of the structural issues that we've been touching on, and starting with the reality of where the global political economy is now. And I think it's very important to understand that in order to think about the future of multilateralism. So I would start with the obvious point that the liberal international economic order was founded on the power of the United States, particularly its military power. And it was the United States that historically has underwritten the system through provision of very important global public goods. And I think particularly of the Bretton Woods institutions, and we've spoken about a couple of those already in this conversation. And then more broadly, the US was able to marshal the system through, if you like, alliances, and particularly anchored on the G7 countries, what became the G7 but started out as the G5. That was the old world order. We are now, I would argue, and many international relations scholars would argue, we are in the interregnum. So this is a bit like Dr. Chandra's point that the king is dead, long live the king. I would say the old order is dying, but the new one has yet to be born. And we're in that very thorny transition period between two orders that makes our times, and particularly, I would say, our children's times, particularly challenging to deal with. So what do we confront? From the standpoint of Australia, which is where I'm based, Australia, like New Zealand, is heavily invested in the previous order, the liberal international economic order. We want a rules-based multilateral system. But what do we see? We see a rising set of challenges from what one might call illiberal powers, and I think particularly of China and India, that are also invested in the liberal international economic order in interesting ways, but are contesting for power in whatever emerges in this interregnum period. But if one looks at the economic structures, and it's not just China and Russia one should look at, we could loosely categorize these as state capitalist systems. And I think the question that many Western powers are increasingly asking is whether those state capitalist systems are compatible with the old institutional structures created under the liberal international economic order. And that's the core of the challenge when it comes to thinking about the future of multilateralism, and particularly its economic governance aspect. And now, sadly, Russia's actions, and particularly the invasion of Ukraine, subsequent Chinese support, tacit and perhaps overt as well, has really meant that the geopolitical game is now firmly on to define this new international system that we're moving into. And therefore, it is no surprise that you find the Australian Prime Minister on a naval vessel in the United States launching a major nuclear submarines project, announcing the next phase of the AUKUS security alliance, which I'm sure many people have heard of. But also that India, Australia, Japan, and the US have joined together to form the Quad. So on the security front, it's very clear new alliances are being forged, new systems are being put in place, and it would be surprising if this was not reflected in the economic structures that we have taken for granted to some extent. And so then the real question becomes, from an international political economy perspective, who will provide the global public goods needed to sustain multilateralism? And what I've heard from a number of speakers already affirms my own view, which is that I think this is largely going to happen outside of multilateral governance structures in the first instance, and through what scholars would call club diplomacy. Small groups of like-minded countries, coalitions of the willing, if you like, coming together on specific issues such as digital trade governance and agreeing to pioneer new rules, new structures, potentially new institutions. So that's the first set of observations I wanted to make. That I think describes the reality of our current moment. Then in the background to the session, it was also mentioned, and you prefaced this, Chair, in your remarks, and I would certainly agree with this, that whatever emerges needs to accommodate institutional diversity. And you specifically mentioned common but differentiated responsibilities, or in the WTO context, what we would call special and differential treatment, or by another name, policy space. Now, I would certainly support all of that, but I would also observe that historically, this has been embedded in the structures that have emerged. So this is not a new concept. International relations scholars have a particular term to describe the historic GATT, or General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, compromise that stood at the core of the GATT system as one of embedded liberalism. The old trade negotiators maxim that we practice Keynes at home. So we're building our welfare state. We need policy space to do that, but we seek Adam Smith abroad, progressively freer international trade. There's always been an inherent contradiction there at the heart of the GATT. That's been carried over into the current system, but it reflects the point that there is still, in my view, a lot of policy space embedded in the WTO and in other multilateral forums. The challenge, however, in this new world that we're heading into is how to trade off, and these are very complex trade-offs, policy space against the leadership required, and particularly from emerging countries, to sustain and develop the system, with the participation required to pool sovereignty and sustain the system. This is a very complicated set of trade-offs. I don't think anybody's found the solution. And I think this is why in the WTO and other multilateral economic governance forums, we find it so difficult to move forward, because we're constantly trading these things off. So what we see in the WTO is that the US, the founder of the system in essence, has essentially stood back and has held the institution to some extent to ransom through its lock on the dispute settlement system. Not without reason, of course, but others aren't really stepping up to fill the gap. And many countries are claiming special and differential treatment. They don't want to take leadership. Somehow this has to be solved. I'm not sure how it gets done. Which then brings me to the final set of observations. So firstly, what is the role of the G20 in all of this? You're in Delhi presently to discuss the G20. I really liked Dr. Chandra's idea of the G20 being a deliberative forum. I think that is going to be its future in this geopolitical context, and largely because those geopolitical contestants are at the heart of the G20. And they don't agree on all that much these days, but they can at least agree to talk, or to paraphrase Winston Churchill, to jaw is better than to war. So that at least the G20 can play a useful role in as a deliberative forum on a range of different topics, and hopefully to seed new, potentially plurilateral initiatives, which is the next layer of economic governance that I think is really the future. This goes to the idea of club diplomacy. In the WTO, that's embodied in the joint statement initiatives, of which there are a number at varying stages of progress. It's difficult to see how we can forge new rules and constructs in the absence of plurilateral initiatives. Although there's a third layer that's somewhere between plurilaterals, I think, and free trade agreements, and let me just call it minilaterals. And I think particularly of two structures that are quite emblematic of this new trend. First is the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which is sponsored by the United States and is quite unlike anything we've seen before. It's in essence a standards governance convergence framework with a trade element, but it's certainly not a traditional free trade agreement. Initially, many trade people dismissed it, but actually, when you start to look at it more closely, it's quite an interesting construct with some potential. We'll see what emerges out of it. That's matched on the Atlantic side by the Transatlantic Trade and Technology Council, with the US at the center of both. So the US is looking for new ways to exert the limited leadership capacity it has left, and I think we need to observe that quite closely. And then finally, Chair, and I'll conclude on this point, we shouldn't forget free trade agreements as potential reform laboratories, as they have always been in the past. And I think India particularly offers an interesting example of that through embracing a free trade agreements agenda of late. And I'll end on that point.
Thank you, Dr. Draper. May I request the team to play a video recording by Dr. Ngozi Oyoyo-Iweala, Director General of the World Trade Organization, please?
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. First, allow me to thank the co-chairs of this year's Partnership Summit, His Excellency Shri Piyush Goyal, Commerce and Industry Minister, and Shri Sanjeev Bajaj, President of the Confederation of Indian Industry, for inviting me to address you today. I'm pleased to join you in spirit, though I could not be there in person. The summit's focus is both timely and urgent. Future growth will rest on competitiveness, sustainability, and inclusion. And to achieve all three, we need stronger partnerships and international cooperation. International cooperation and solidarity are urgently required to meet global challenges, from debt distress to climate shocks and inflation. However, rising geopolitical tensions with outright war in Ukraine mean that fragmentation in the global economy is a growing concern. Decoupling would make countries and people poorer. WTO economists estimate that if the world economy divides into two self-contained trading blocks, it would lower long-run global GDP by at least 5%. The rules-based multilateral trading system is an arena where we urgently need to restore trust. The WTO system was set up in response to the chaos we saw in the first half of the 20th century. It succeeded beyond its founders' expectations. For over 75 years, it has delivered. It has helped lift over 1 billion people out of poverty and has kept goods and services accessible and affordable. Over 75% of goods are traded under core WTO rules. Close to 30% of annual world output depends on trade. The WTO also served the international community largely well in more recent years, taking it through shocks such as the 2008 financial crisis, the food crisis, and more recently the COVID-19 pandemic. This is not to say that the way global trade operates does not have weaknesses or shortcomings. The past 3 years have exposed supply chain vulnerabilities, particularly over concentration in where some products are manufactured. In response to these vulnerabilities, a growing chorus is calling for deglobalization. But in light of how costly that would be, I'm convinced that the better way to respond to current concerns about supply chain vulnerability is what we call in the WTO reglobalization. This means diversifying and deconcentrating supply chains to bring in geographies and communities that have thus far been on the margins. We can have interdependence without overdependence. At the same time, we must tackle other challenges. Fossil fuel subsidies continue to contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. Persistent farm subsidies are distorting agricultural production and trade. A growing number of industrial subsidy programs could have negative spillovers for fair competition, especially for the many countries that lack the resources to participate in a subsidy race. Today's global problems cannot be solved by flying solo. To avoid lasting global economic damage, we need strategic cooperation, even as we have strategic competition. And strategic cooperation includes reforming and strengthening the WTO. This is why what I recently told G20 foreign ministers under India's presidency is that reforming and improving the system is of paramount importance. The G20 can show leadership in this regard. And ladies and gentlemen, we are not starting from scratch. At our 12th ministerial meeting at the WTO last June, members demonstrated that multilateral cooperation is still possible. They agreed to do away with $22 billion in harmful fishery subsidies that threaten fish stocks and harm our oceans. They took measures to safeguard global food security and bolster our collective response to the pandemic. They launched a process of WTO reform, including reform of the dispute settlement system. I ask your support in helping us build on these achievements. A rules-based, non-discriminatory, open multilateral trading system is indispensable for inclusive growth, job creation, and sustainable development. It is a critical element of the enabling environment businesses need to innovate and thrive. Your involvement in the G20 and beyond is needed to make the next WTO ministerial meeting in February 2024 a success. I thank you for your attention and look forward to us working together.
That's great. I think we've overshot our times, but I'll just try and wrap up the session in a couple of minutes. I'd like to thank Dr. Chanda. Thank you for your inputs. You know, what was great is that you went beyond trade and you covered the entire global health governance, data governance, global migration, climate governance. So that was very useful to open up the conversation on that. I also like the point about your view on hub and spoke multilateralism. I think that's something I'll take away from this discussion. Mr. Akola, it was a fantastic eye-opener for me. I had not thought about corruption as being, you know, that important as a focus to make it an SDG. From your point of view, I really enjoyed listening to the golden rules for Race to Zero, for peace and prosperity. So thank you for sharing that with the audience. Mr. Jacoby, I think war and inflation being a toxic mix is very well put. I do appreciate your focus on a rules-based multilateralism as being important, and yet you're being, I think, balanced and looking at plurilateral frameworks as perhaps an intermediate approach to this. And Dr. Draper, I think the old world order is in fact dying. I take your point that we're in transition and we're sort of looking around for the new order to come. I think you too have highlighted that the answer may be in small groups, in coalition of similar countries, regional cooperation, something that I think most of our panelists have talked about. So thank you very much for your time and for sharing your thoughts. Thank you to the audience and wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.
I'd request Mr. Advani to please present the token of appreciation to the panelists.
I don't know, do we have a virtual one? Or just paper? So, one photograph on this in the mail. Right. Very nice to highlight as a presentation today. Loved your remarks. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best. Oh, yeah.
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are a $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Our today is about delivering excellence across business sectors. Our today is about building a future-ready nation.